What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another mock draft episode on the channel. If you're new, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you're just returning, make sure you hit that like button for me. As always, I appreciate all the support from you guys. Make sure you guys are leaving some comments, as well as it does help me boost the algorithm as we are on our way to becoming the best college football channel on YouTube. I'm headed to the Senior Bowl, so that's going to be super exciting at the end of the month. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into the mock draft, the big reason why you guys are here. And nothing is really going to change with my number one pick. I still think no matter who is picking number one, Travis Hunter is the obvious choice. I mean, let's be honest. Heisman winner, 1,200 yards as a receiver, 16 touchdowns. I can't remember the interception numbers right now. Bolitnikov winner, though. Trav has all the goods that you want in really a generational player. I mean, I feel like that word gets thrown around a whole lot, but when it comes to Travis Hunter, you're pretty much hitting the nail with the hammer with that word, because when it comes to Trav, I really don't think there's anything that you're missing. He checks off every single box that you really need in terms of a big weapon, even just on the defensive standpoint. Again, he can run that 70-30 split on a team like the Titans as well, because they need help in both that secondary and the wide receiver room. Quarterback is maybe in play, but I personally would let Will Levis ride at least another year. He has 2 years left on his contract. I would try to grab a guy like Sam Darnold in free agency potentially, or even maybe try to get a quarterback in the second or third round to compete. But for this first pick, I really wouldn't want the Titans to reach for Shedeur or Cam Ward. And I know it sounds like a lot because they're probably still going to go in the top 5. But at number 1, I don't think you're going to get another chance at a prospect like Travis Hunter in the next 10 to 15 years, really. Maybe even ever, with that being said. Next up is the Cleveland Browns. And I feel like this is kind of an automatic one. You kind of already know they're going to go quarterback here. The running back could obviously be in play, but I think quarterback is just going to be the one that makes the most sense. They have been rumored to like a lot what Cam Ward brings to the table. Ward obviously has a little bit more upside than Shedeur with these top 2 QBs, but both are pro ready. I think Cam Ward, being that he developed those 5 years, is just a little bit more pro ready. He was recognized as the best quarterback in the country, winning the Davey O'Brien Award, so that definitely has to count for something. And I really haven't heard any negatives in terms of Cam Ward's first round grade. I know recently we've heard a little bit of, scouts don't value Shedeur as a first round prospect. I mean, even if they don't, he's still going to go in the first round. I mean, look at the quarterback class. Like, we have to be honest with ourselves here. So I think Cam Ward is the obvious selection for the Browns, which takes us to the Giants, which pretty much leaves them with Shedeur Sanders, who we've pretty much seen penciled into the Giants from about week maybe 13 or 14. Now, does Dabble get another year in his contract? He's penciled in until 2026, and with the new quarterback coming in, does this give him a opportunity to stay with the team? Sanders is a quarterback that I like a lot. He's my personal QB1. I think he has the best accuracy in this class, and he makes the better NFL throws. But he does take too many sacks, and he still needs just a little bit more developing in terms of being a runner, especially in this day and age's NFL. But other than that, I think he'll be fine. I think he's, again, pro-ready, and we'll have to see how he does in the Shrine Bowl to impact his draft stock, because, again, a lot of people are looking at that last bowl game, and they're looking at more negatives than they are positives. Again, Shedeur Sanders, I still think, is going to go in the first round. Probably still going to go top 10, regardless if the Giants take him or not. But I think as of right now, the Giants are going to be selecting Shedeur Sanders with the number 3 pick, which takes us over to my New England Patriots. And again, I was a little played that we're not going to be in the Travis Hunter sweepstakes anymore. But you still got to go ahead and get Drake May a weapon, regardless of how you look at it. Boots shown flashes. Douglas has probably been the most consistent wide receiver for the team. But a guy like Tataro McMillan can easily turn up your offense another notch. And I think this is what the offense has been missing. A big weapon on the perimeter. And he's a back-to-back 1,300-yard receiver, 6'5", big body guy, knows how to use his body in contested catches, wins a lot of one-on-one reps, has a decent route tree, decent burners, but just the athleticism at 6'5" that he gives you, it's hard to pass up on a prospect. And I've watched for years now the Patriots pass up on prospects in the first round for linemen to adhere the trenches. But for this 1 year, can we please go after a weapon instead of, guys are penciling in Will Campbell, which I wouldn't be mad at. He's a talented prospect, but we need a weapon for Drake May. And Tataro McMillan can easily be that guy that goes ahead and turns up our offense, which takes us to the Jaguars. And just talking about Will Campbell, I think this is where he ends up being the best offensive lineman prospect in this year's draft. Projected to play guard at the next level, but still gives you that, talent at tackle. Guys like Calvin Banks are pretty much going to be full-time tackles in the NFL, whereas Will Campbell, through the grapevine, it's been told to me that he's going to play guard his first couple years. So obviously the best offensive lineman in the in this draft. That's who you want to roll with to get Trevor Lawrence that protection. 6'6", 320-pound unit, and he's ready to go to war. Again, rarely lost a rep at LSU, and he's one of those dudes that you want in your foxtrot for you. Seriously. Which takes us over to the Raiders. And Myers and Bowers just had 1,000-yard seasons, so I don't think you have to worry about receivers. They had that even with their makeshift quarterback situation. Now, could the Raiders be a team that reaches for a quarterback like Jalen Milroe, reaches for a quarterback like Dylan Gabriel? Will Howard is playing tremendous football right now, could find himself in the first round if Ohio State potentially wins the national championship. But outside of that, Jackson Dart could be an intriguing prospect going into the Senior Bowl. Outside of that, outside of those four, though, I really wouldn't touch anybody in this first round. I wouldn't even want to reach for any of those four in this first round, which is kind of why I'm leaning towards the Raiders drafting Ashton Jeanty and kind of taking him away from the Cowboys, which are kind of waiting down here at pick 12. Not thinking that anybody's going to need a running back, but Raiders are a team that are in dire need of a run boost because I don't think they have a running back that you're looking at in terms of, game time production, and not even that, but just being a game changer. Ashton Jeanty is a game changer. You have guys like Zamir White, didn't really pan out. Guys like Mattinson, doing so-so. Amir Abdullah kind of gave you, a little bit of promise towards the end of the season, but do you really want to have Amir Abdullah as your RB1 going into next year? I really don't think so. Maybe a great complimentary back with Mattinson. Outside of that, I don't like any other quarterbacks right now with this 6th pick. I just think Ashton Jeanty makes the most sense, which is why I went ahead and drafted him for the Raiders. Again, yeah, I don't think so. You have the second, you can get quarterback in the second at pick 37. And again, that's the 5th pick in the second round. So Gabriel will still be there. Jackson Dart will still be there. Plenty of these quarterbacks will still be there. Maybe one team reaches for one, but you're still going to have a chance at Dylan Gabriel, still have a chance at Will Howard. Again, I like Jackson Dart's game. You're going to have a good chance at getting a quarterback that can at least compete in your room for next season, which takes us over to the Jets. And speaking of quarterback rooms, in New York, it's really a toss-up for me right now just because of the whole Aaron Rodgers situation. You really don't know what's going to happen in the future. And especially with guys like Garrett Wilson looking like they're going to request a trade out of New York because they don't want to play with Aaron anymore. It's looking a little spooky for them. So they're going to have a lot of holes to fill. Again, I don't like any other quarterbacks right now. I wouldn't want to reach, as a team at least, I wouldn't want to reach for any other quarterbacks, especially knowing that most of them are going to be there in the second. I think as of right now, you probably want to take care of either your defensive line or your secondary. And with DJ Reed set to test free agency coming into next season, I think Will Johnson is going to be pretty much a home run pick here. The best pure cornerback in this year's NFL draft class. Could have went in last year's draft class as well, but decided to stay a year. Will Johnson can easily turn up your defense, and being a running mate with Sauce Gardner, that can be a terrific tandem, seriously. And it takes us into the Panthers, and a lot of people were talking about, quarterback could be a need, but Dave Canales literally went on record and said, Bryce is our guy. And I really like to see that because Bryce Young certainly has got it together, especially in these, past, 4 or 5 games for the Panthers. He's shown a lot more upside compared to, prior to his benching, mid-season. I do think that the wide receiver play right now is pretty decent. Guys like Coker and Leggett have been getting their reps with Bryce Young. Adam Thielen's still showing just a little bit of tread on those tires left. So I think right here you want to focus on the trenches, especially on the defensive side. And I think Penn State's Abdul Carter is easily a home run pick here as well. One of the most freakishly gifted athletes in this year's draft class. Transition from linebacker to edge, so he does give you a lot of versatility on the defense, a plug-and-play type of guy for sure, but Abdul Carter is making an immediate impact for your defense if you are the Carolina Panthers at the 8th pick, which takes us to the Saints, and I was a little stooped with the Saints right here, just because a lot of their offensive line problems are due to injury. I think defensive line could definitely be in play here, and I'm not going to lie, regardless of how you look at it, trenches are your focal point on both sides. Kelvin Banks could be an option here. Again, he's still available if you want a pure tackle. But if you want to go with best available and, just a prospect that's probably going to take your team over the top, at least your defense, it's going to be defensive lineman Mason Graham. I think Mason Graham is going to be a terrific NFL player. Just from what I've been watching on his tape and on his game film, he is a backfield disruptor. And he plays with a high motor. That's a guy that you definitely want in your trenches and a guy that I think the Saints are definitely going to be paying attention to heading into this year's NFL draft. And as for the Bears, this is kind of a no-brainer here. And honestly, maybe a reason why I didn't take Kelvin Banks to the Saints. The Bears need a tackle. The Bears need a tackle bad. And I really don't think they have to really look at any other position. Maybe a cornerback you can look at to help out your secondary. But as of right now, you kind of want to get Caleb that protection. You want to get him a little bit more time in the pocket. You already have the weapons around him. So let's go ahead and make sure that Caleb can get the football to those weapons. And then we take a look at the 49ers, and I think edge is probably the play here if you don't pursue Joey Bosa in free agency. I know reports have, said that it could be a potential move. Hargrave obviously isn't getting any younger. Not that Joey B's, super young, but he'll be playing with his brother, so I guess that gives it a little bit more upside. Drake Jackson hasn't really panned out of USC kind of how you hoped, and I think Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M is a great fit here. 6'6" guy, and he is another one of those freak athletes in this year's draft. Niners have taken freak athletes in the past, and it hasn't panned out before. I won't name any names, but Shamar Stewart could be a guy that makes an immediate impact on that defense. He's 6'6", prototypical size for an edge, and I think we could see a big rise in his stock, especially going in to the Senior Bowl and going in to the Combine as well. The only other person that I would really take a look at if I was the Niners right here would probably be James Pierce because of the versatility. But outside of that, I just think Shamar Stewart is going to see a lot of rise in his stock and could potentially be one of the first edges taken off the board after Abdul Carter. Which takes us to the Cowboys, who are pretty much going to be bummed out that Genty went off the board because they're another one of those teams that it's a no-brainer on what they need. That running back room is absolutely atrocious. Yes, Dowdle showed you, 120 plus in back-to-back games, week 15 and 16. But outside of that, I'm not trusting Dowdle to be RB1. A lot of people are loving Cam Skattebo. I was very, very big on Cam Skattebo early on in the season. However, I don't think he's worth a first-round target. I think a guy like Omarion Hampton and a guy like Caleb Johnson are kind of just losing draft stock just because of the recency bias in the college football playoffs. We see Dylan Sampson getting a rise up here too. Travion Henderson could also be in the running for a first-round take. I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't take Travion, but from what I've been seeing, there's a chance that teams definitely take a look at Travion Henderson in this first round. Only two or three teams that are going to be looking at a running back, but Cowboys could be a team that takes a look at him. I do think at this point, though, right here, we'd be looking at Omarion Hampton and Caleb Johnson. I was extremely high on Caleb Johnson, probably my RB2 coming out of this year's draft, which is probably why I'm going to select him here at this pick at least. Both of their bodies of work just extremely evident of being a workhorse running back between him and Omarion Hampton, and they were both top 5 in rush yards and touchdowns. I think Caleb Johnson was top 3 in touchdowns. So kind of why I want to give him the edge. He was a red zone monster. Big bulldozing type of guy too, and he plays very patiently behind that line of scrimmage, which takes us to the Dolphins. I'm sorry, and I'm not gonna lie, with the new reports of Tyreek Hill wanting out of Miami, that's gonna leave a big gap in that wide receiver room, and I really do think Mike McDaniel's going to have to take a look at this receiver class. And if you take a look right here, Luther Burden and Emeka Egbuka, I'm not saying they can play up to Tyreek Hill's level or standard, but they can definitely make an impact for you and fill in a couple of holes that Tyreek Hill might leave on certain plays. Emeka Egbuka is probably my favorite between the two in terms of the slot receivers. You still have Waddle, so I think Emeka Egbuka could be in play here. Only other option that I would go with would definitely be offensive line, just to keep Tua protected. Josh Simmons would be nice. Cameron Williams would be nice. A lot of people are high on Gray Zabel and I'm going to botch his name, but Sava Aninea. Both of them give you a lot of versatility. These kind of 4 guys, pretty much pure tackles. These 2 being the leftover guard and tackle players. Could be a chance that Josh Simmons does end up moving to guard anyway, at least from what I've heard through the grapevine. But I think just to shake things up, because I have been taking linemen frequently with the Dolphins in every mock draft, I'm going to take Emeka Egbuka here. I do think he can be a tremendous talent next to Waddle. And playing with a quarterback like Tua, who I'm not very high on, but played pretty well coming back from his last concussion, we're definitely going to have to see what the Dolphins can cook up next season, especially with Tyreek Hill being on the way out. Which takes us over to the 14th pick and the Indianapolis Colts. And Colts are actually a really fun pick because there's 2 ways that they can really go. And it's not really, the traditional way that most teams draft. They can go safety or tight end here because those are really their biggest needs. I know linebacker is also a big need, but there's not really a linebacker I would select in this first round. Harold Perkins now going back to LSU. Jahad Campbell's playing really good football. Jalen Walker playing really good football. I just don't think, at least, I shouldn't say first round, but at least at the 14th pick, I wouldn't take a linebacker. I would definitely take care of either the secondary, which Colts aren't going to have a safety at least signed to their team after next season. So they're going to have 2 free agents heading off. So could take a look at Malachi Starks. But when you have a tight end like Tyler Warren, who, again, I'm not as high on. My tight end one is Harold Fannin Jr. But when you have a tight end like Tyler Warren, who gives you a lot of versatility, Swiss Army knife versatility, you kind of want to take a look at him and, question if he can really shake your team up and help you improve immediately. We've seen him line up as a running back, as a fullback, tight end, receiver. I mean, he really did it all for Penn State. And in a tight end room that isn't good whatsoever with the Colts, I really think Tyler Warren could be in play for Indianapolis. I think he's a great weapon as well to, grow with Anthony Richardson. And not to mention, he also got a couple Heisman votes, so that has to count for something, right? But Tyler Warren going to the Colts in the first round is pretty much where I would have it as of right now. And for the Falcons, no-brainer for me here. I wish the Falcons would have taken care of edge last year in the first round when they drafted Penix, but that's neither here nor there because Penix is hooping. Like that last game for Penix, he was absolutely hooping, so I can't be a hater. They obviously seen something that I didn't there. But I think as of right here, with the 15th pick, you're going to take care of edge. Get yourself someone that gives you, an immediate impact on pass rushing. Nick Scourton out of Texas A&M is that guy, which takes us over to the Cardinals. This could also be a pass rusher in play for Arizona. Again, this class is loaded with some freak athletes like Landon Jackson, Princely Yu, Michael Williams. But I think right now you need to go ahead and get Kyler some more protection. Josh Simmons in play here or Cameron Williams. You kind of want to get a pure tackle here just to fill out that gap. I'm going to take Josh Simmons just because best available right now. Just go ahead and get the Arizona Cardinals that protection that they need, because the weapons are there for Kyler. So I think if you can just give him a little bit more time in the pocket, you can definitely get those weapons to work for you. Getting over into the Bengals, wide receiver seems to be the biggest need, but I really do think people are getting paid in the offseason for the Bengals for sure. I didn't like what I seen recently with Jeremy Byrne. I'm not going to get into it, but apparently he got caught gambling, owes people some money, also getting evicted. Check it out on Twitter if you guys want to really, deep dive in to what's going on with him. But I do think as of right now, wide receiver wouldn't be in play. I would take a look at the edges right here, because outside of Trey Hendrickson on your defensive line, one, you're not getting any younger and you're not getting any more pass rush going. I think a guy like Mykel Williams or a guy like James Pierce can easily impact your defensive line. You kind of want to get a plug-and-play type player. I think for the sake of this draft, I'm going to take James Pierce just because of how high I am on him. I think he's going to translate very well to the NFL. One of the few edge rushers, actually, that I've watched a full tape on, and I actually really like what I'm seeing for James Pierce. Getting on into the Seahawks, and we're going to stay on brand here. I'm not going to change or sway away from anything that I've done previously. I'm going to go with someone that can help out their offensive line, and I'm going to look at Gray Zabel, and I'm going to look at Jonah Sa, just because they need help at guard and tackle on the right side. Gray Zabel gives you that versatility, having plenty of snaps at left guard, and not only that, he's played at left tackle and right tackle. But if we also look at Jonah S., he's given you that same type of versatility. Again, he's played a full season at right guard, played pretty much full season at tackle, left and right side. But I think because of that full season at right guard, this is going to be someone that the Seahawks definitely take a look at, because you can trust him to help you out on that right side, whether it's at guard or tackle. Which takes us into the Texans, another team that could be potentially upgrading their offensive line. I know wide receiver is a position that some people are going to want to look at. Chance that Diggs does get franchise tagged or re-signs with them pretty high, at least for me. They're going to be missing Tank Dell, obviously, next season with the leg injury. Prayers up to Tank Dell. But I think offensive line is probably where you're going to want to look at. Shaq Mason, not getting any younger, most likely on his way out. You could be looking, to move Laramie Tunsil inside. Could be looking to move Fisher inside. Obviously, his rookie year. You could be looking for someone to take over at right tackle like Cameron Williams or Arante Ursary. Because they do need help on the interior, you could also take a look at Gray Zabel. Now, a lot of people are going to wonder why Gray Zabel is going ahead of Arante Ursary and Wyatt Mullum, but it's because I really do think these two are going to just be pure traditional tackles in the NFL, whereas Gray Zabel, again, gives you that versatility that you're ultimately looking for if you're the Texans. Outside of this, you could be looking at the running back position, but I think Mixon gives you another year. You could go ahead and just try to get a free agent. I'm going to go with Gray Zabel here. I do think getting protection for the Texans is going to be key here. And again, guys are going to be on their way out. Some guys are going to be moving on the line. Just get someone that you can really plug and play, and just trust that you to be on that offensive line and hold it down for Stroud. Which takes us to the Broncos, where Bo Nix has really proven to be the guy. So I think because he's proven that, go ahead and get him a weapon, whether it be wide receiver or tight end. I think as of right now, I would love to see Harold Fannin Jr. in a Broncos uniform as the tight end, because he led the country in 20 offensive categories, one of the best, receiving seasons from a tight end, 1,555 yards, double-digit touchdowns, broke plenty of records, max MVP, max offensive player of the year, you name it, he did it. And I think Harold Fannin Jr. can definitely find himself going in the first round. I do like him. I do like him above Loveland. I like him above Warren. He's my tight end one. While I do think Warren gives you a lot more versatility than what Fannin does, Fannin can still find himself going in the first round. Which takes us to the Tampa Bay Bucks. And if you look at the Bucks depth chart, there's only one position that sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's the secondary. I shouldn't say one position, but one room that sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's the secondary. Safety and cornerback need help. Like, they need help immensely going into next season, which raises an eyebrow because Malachi Starks is right here. It makes you want to take a look and see if you need that help at safety or if you want help immediately at cornerback. Savon Ravel, dealing with that injury, has seen himself, go down draft boards, pretty much where I penciled. The Bucks pick was Savon Ravel. Chance that Benjamin Morrison raises his draft stock with the combine coming up, in a couple months and stuff like that. But I think right now, because your secondary needs help in the safety room and the cornerback room, I think Malachi Stark still being available at pick 21, you really do have to take a stab at and just trust that he's going to be that impactful defensive player that scouts are touting him to be. Ranked as the number 7 player on PFF, ranked highly on plenty of scouts draft boards. He's probably I would say, safety 2 in this year's draft. But still one of the most impactful players, especially for the Georgia defense this season. Which takes us to the Steelers. And again, I'm going to stay on brand here with what I've been going with for the Steelers. I do think wide receiver is going to be in play here. And I've been penciling in plenty of slot wide receivers throughout the mock. But in recent light of what's going on with George Pickens, I think he's probably going to be on his way out. And we could see a guy like Kyron Lacy, who is a terrific X-receiver, tear it up in the combine, tear it up at the Senior Bowl, and see himself rise up draft boards. Again, another guy that I would take a look at as well would be Jaden Higgins as an X. But Luther Burden still being available, probably going to be where the Steelers end up going. I did have Igbuka or Burden kind of bouncing back and forth between this pick here, but with Igbuka going earlier to the Dolphins, I do see Burden pretty much just falling in to the Steelers' lap. Which takes us to the Los Angeles Rams, and this is another team where the secondary kind of just sticks out. I feel like they're just really one player away from, taking it over the top with that secondary. I like what Witherspoon's doing at corner. I like what Cameron Kitchens is doing. Curls is also in at safety. Great secondary, but again, they're just one piece away from having that sound secondary. And I think Benjamin Morrison or even Jedi Barron could be that guy that takes them, over the top. Benjamin Morrison, again, one of my favorite corners in this year's draft. Probably my, CB2 when it comes to pure corners. Going to be a guy that teams look at. Savon Ravel, again, dealing with that injury. It's going to be interesting to see just where he does go, depending just on how serious it is. We have to see if he's even going to be able to test at the combine and, at any of the pro days. Jedi Barron was a finalist for the Thorpe, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with his draft stock. A lot of teams have been liking what they see on tape, but I think just to be on the safe side, I'm going to take Benjamin Morrison, again, one of my favorite corners in this year's draft. And there's a chance we go back-to-back corners here because Jair Alexander's probably on his way out of the Packers. And again, teams are going to love what they see with Jedi Barron, and I'm not going to lose any faith in Savon Ravel. I still do think he is well worth a first-round pick, which is kind of why I'm going to select him here, because if you watch his tape, he checks off every single box that you want in terms of a full CB1, and I really just don't see that in Jedi's game. I think he's a tremendous cornerback. I think he's going to be a tremendous CB2. But in terms of, an island, a guy that you can leave out there with the, team's best wide receiver, Savon Ravel is pretty much that guy for me in this year's draft class. Taking us over to the Colts. Taking us over to the Chargers, the Bolts, I meant to say. Colston Loveland, pretty much no-brainer pick here. Harbaugh's going to go ahead and draft his guy, regardless if anybody wants it or not. And not to mention, the Chargers tight end room really isn't anything pretty to look at. Will Dissly and Hayden Hurst just aren't it. Offense is slowly clicking. Quentin Johnston having a little bit better season this year in terms of catching the ball. But I still think this offense is just missing a big weapon, a big safety net option, which Colston Loveland can definitely offer to Justin Herbert. There's been rumors that Tyreek Hill also wants to make a move to the Chargers. So it leaves you to question what position on offense just needs to be filled. It's going to be that tight end room for sure. Which takes us to the Commanders, who have had, by the way, a hell of a season behind Jaden Daniels. But you can still see that there's room for improvement in a couple areas in this room, especially the secondary and the wide receiver room. And I'm going to be honest, they need an immediate impact player for, the secondary. I do really like that they decided to trade for Marshawn Lattimore, but I still think that secondary just needs all the help that it can get, which leaves me to believe that this is where Barron ends up going. Jedi Brown. I'm just botching everybody's name today. Jedi Barron ends up going, but also a chance where we can see a safety come off the board. And Xavier Watts has been making a lot of noise in the college football playoffs, and he's a guy that I can see finding himself in the first round, testing very well. Again, making waves in the playoffs. He led college football in interceptions for all of safeties. So there's a chance that teams do take a look at the Notre Dame safety. A lot of guys like Kevin Winston, obviously seeing himself fall down the draft board as of late. So I think the play here is cornerback or safety, really depending on which one you think needs the most help. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, for the Commanders thinks needs the most help, whether it's the corners or the safeties. I'm going to take Jahdae Barron here, though. I do think cornerback is going to be a need. If Marshawn Lattimore comes back, again, Barron looks like the perfect CB2, perfect running mate for a pure CB1. So that could be a terrific tandem to have for the Commanders going into next season, especially with all the talented wide receivers that you have to deal with in the East, whether it's the Eagles, whether it's the Cowboys, Malik Neighbors now on the Giants. Like, it literally does not matter. You have to see, some tough matchups 8 times a year. So you definitely want to be ready with that secondary. And another team where the secondary sticks out and the wide receiver room sticks out is the Ravens. But I'm going to be honest, the trenches probably need the most help, and that's why this is a no-brainer to draft one of the top 3 tackles still available. Orante Ursary going over to the Ravens. Available. Which, again, probably why we're going to go ahead and take Orante Ursary to the Ravens. I do think Nate Wiggins is coming to his own as a rookie. He's been killing it, should be killing it next season. Humphrey seems to be on a decline, which is why you could kind of look at the secondary. But, I mean, outside of that, Rashad Bateman's giving you flashes in the wide receiver room. So you still do have a chance to just beef up the offensive line and still, kind of grab weapons in the second and or third round for the Ravens. Which takes us to the Vikings, and running back and defensive linemen are easily in play here, depending on really who's still left on the board. If we take a look at the running back room, with Omarion Hampton still being available, I'm going to go ahead and select Omarion Hampton for the Vikings. Again, Aaron Jones Sr. has been playing very well, but we know how the NFL values running backs, and with him just turning 30 last December, I don't think the Vikings are going to be looking at Aaron Jones long term. Omarion Hampton, again, like Caleb Johnson, gives you that workhorse availability, and he had a tremendous season. Again, top 5 in touchdowns and rush yards. Going to be another running back that these teams look at in the first round. Going to test extremely well. Just one of those guys that you can kind of cut on the tape and understand, yeah, he's going first round. Which takes us to the Bills. And it seems like a repetitive story here. But secondary definitely could use the help. I don't think, the Damar Hamlin thing is working out. Again, if it was a feel-good story, seriously. But outside of Taylor Rapp and your secondary, in your secondary, you don't have any help. Kyle Elam hasn't panned out. You really do need a ball hawk. So with Xavier Watts still on the board, again, led college football in interceptions for safeties, and he's been looking great these college football playoffs. I think he's probably going to be a safety that does see his name called in the first round. Whether it be late, still well worth the first round selection. I think he makes an immediate impact for the Bills, and we go ahead and get Damar Hamlin out of there. I hate to say that too, because as a Pats fan, I wouldn't want to see Taylor Rapp and Xavier Watts 2 times a year in the secondary, but great pickup here for the Bills if that's what they decide to do. Taking us over to the Eagles, and I'm going to be honest, I had a tackle here because Lane Johnson does need a replacement, but with that pipeline that we've been seeing with Georgia players going to Philadelphia, there's a chance that Mykel Williams or Jalen Walker see their name get called with this 30 pick. Really depending on which one you like more. I personally like Mykel Williams more than Jalen Walker, which is why I'm going to take him at pick 30. Again, I just don't see a linebacker right now worth selecting in the first round. Even if it's this late, now that I'm looking at the board, I like Jalen Walker's game, but I still would have Jahad Campbell above him. And even right now, I wouldn't take Jahad Campbell in the first round, looking at just the needs of these teams, which takes us to the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think this is probably where we see another tight end go off the board, just because offensive line, you're pretty much set. Rookies are waiting for opportunities. Secondary, yeah, maybe you can grab a corner here to help out, but a lot of guys are coming to their own. A lot of guys are developing very well. Travis Kelce isn't getting any younger, and I don't think any of the other tight ends in the room really, pop off the screen. Gunnar Helm can easily help out. 6'5" tight end, tremendous blocker, tremendous pass catcher. Seriously. Just a heck of an athlete, and I think he's going to be one of those guys that the Chiefs take a look at. Could be, again, a pipeline forming over there from Texas to Kansas City. So we'll have to take a look and see if the Chiefs do take a look at Gunnar Helm. But another one of those tight ends that you really do want to take a look at. And I know we don't see a lot of tight ends go in the first round as often, but in recent years, it's been one of those positions that the NFL has been coveting just slowly but surely. Which takes us to the last pick in this mock draft. And I'm going to be honest, cornerback's probably going to be in play here. Secondary for the Lions hasn't been as good as you want it to be. And I don't think you're truly set on Amik Robertson and Terrion Arnold as your 1-2 punch. Yes, they've been playing tremendous football, but can you trust one of them to be a pure cornerback one? Now, looking at this board right now, I'm going to be honest, you can't even find a cornerback one, so it's hilarious that I even brought that up, which is probably going to take us over to the other option, which is defensive line and edge. Pretty much just beefing up the trenches. And with Kenneth Grant still available on the board, keeping him in Michigan the same way you did, Hutchinson, could be another huge boost for your defense. So I think with that being said, no good corners still left on the board, at least the corner that I would take in the first round, even at pick 32. I'm going to take Kenneth Grant in the first round for the Lions. So here you can see where we have our first round for pretty much the teams that are set in stone right now up until April. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below of this mock draft. Again, I appreciate all the feedback. I try to reply back as much as I can. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, CFB Alec Elijah, on Twitter, CFB Alec Elijah as well. Links will be in the bio. I will see you guys next video. Be sure to check out the shorts as well. Peace.